Hey everyone, Diavolo here, and welcome back to my review for chapter 222 of Tokyo Revengers. If you guys are new around here and want to keep up to date with the latest Tokyo Revengers reviews, spoilers, and more, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and also be sure to leave a like on the video, as it really helps out with the algorithm and pushes my stuff to a bunch of new amazing people. But anyway, enough of that, let's get into this chapter. So obviously this chapter is going to be absolutely huge, as with the events that have happened last week and Draken being shot and falling to the ground, we don't know exactly whether or not if he is 100% dead yet, and whether or not an ambulance perhaps is going to make it to him or not. But throughout this chapter, I guess we will find out some of that. So the chapter does start off and Draken's kind of lying on the ground, and you get this like real feel to it, with him kind of looking up at the sky and rain kind of falling down and like hitting his hands and landing on his eyes. And he says like he can't feel or hear anything. And he says that the sky is beginning to get blurry, which is so sad. If you think about it, like this is so sad in terms of like, I can't actually believe that Draken is possibly dying here. And Takemichi obviously runs over to Draken and kneels down beside him and tells him that Senju has gone off to get an ambulance and get help for Draken as well, telling him that he'll be alright and that he'll definitely save him. But I think Draken, along with us as readers, know that this moment is kind of different in general, as Draken has already been saved once before in the past, and now with this, it kind of feels like Draken has really reached the final point. And even he says here, he's like, I see, I'm dying, which is probably the saddest thing I think I've ever heard Draken say, and it really does bring tears to my eyes seeing the look in Draken's eyes just slowly fade away. He almost kind of has the same look in his eyes that Mikey has, which is the surprising look to him, if you kind of know what I mean, how the life is kind of faded from his eyes while he's lying on the ground there. It gives me the same kind of look that Mikey has while he's walking around just in general, that kind of dead look to himself, which is quite sad when you think about it. And Takemichi's like, what are you talking about? Don't say something so like sad like that. Everything will be okay by tomorrow because you're Draken, right? Obviously, Takemichi's completely freaking out over the fact that Draken has just been shot and falling to the ground. And Draken tells him, please don't blame yourself for this. This happened not because you came back to the past, but because of my own will. You saved my life, so I'll gladly put my life on the line for you. So obviously, that's in reference to way back at the very beginning of the series, on like chapter 12, where Takemichi saved Draken by carrying him to the ambulance, you know, and defeating Kiyomasa and his goons along the way with the help of the Mizo Middle School 5. So it's extremely sad to see Draken, you know, like reminiscing back on the fact that he'll gladly throw himself in front of bullets to save Takemichi, because he knows Takemichi would have done the exact same thing for him if he knew that Draken's life was on the line. So this is something that almost we could have never seen coming. As readers, we didn't see this coming, and it almost makes sense that Draken would do this because he believes so much in Takemichi, and he doesn't want Takemichi to die. He knows the pain that Takemichi has gone through just to try and save his friends, so he would gladly put his life on the line to try and save Takemichi at least once. And Draken ends up explaining, I think, to Takemichi something that is extremely important here, and gives us more of an insight into Mikey's personality again. He says, you know, when I was in elementary school, I lost so many fights. And Takemichi's like, wait, what, someone like you? And Draken says, I messed with the older guys, you see. After losing, I'd crawl on the ground and stare at the sky like this. When I looked at the sky, everything else became so irrelevant, and I found peace. And Takemichi, you know, obviously being someone who's always tried to pick fights with older people as well and stand up for his friends, kind of understands exactly how that feels. And I think that's something that also Shinichiro Sano would understand exactly how that feels. But Draken says here that Mikey has never seen the sky, meaning that Mikey has never experienced defeat, so he never knows, you know, what a loss is like. And then Draken asks Takemichi, probably the saddest thing. Oh, this entire chapter is so damn sad, man. Reading this thing, having to go back through it is just bringing tears to my eyes. It's so sad. Draken says, Takemichi, I really like that guy. The way he carried everything on his back, and yet somehow he was able to endure it all. All of that. I've been with him through all of that. Oh man, it's so sad. As Draken's like saying this, he's like coughing up blood out of his mouth, and you can just see the utter pain that He knows Mikey has been able to somehow stand through all of the pain in his life and be this overbearing force for all of the guys in Toma to look up to and someone to look up to. And Draken says, you know, like, he wishes that he could have done something to help Mikey at the end of the day. I think this here is where we're going to get either probably one of the biggest advents to happen in the entire story so far. I'm going to break it down for you guys in a second, but Draken says, "Can I ask you something lame? Please take care of Mikey." And Takemichi, with tears in his eyes, replies, "Absolutely." So obviously that's where the chapter's left us. We don't know if Draken has passed away 100% yet, but it's extremely obvious that Draken is heavily wounded and is probably going to pass away here. One thing that I do want to point out is the fact that Draken has just asked Takemichi to take care of Mikey, which is exactly how Emma almost asked Takemichi to also take care of Mikey. Very, very reminiscent of how Emma also passed away. But the other fact I want to point out is he's kind of made a deal with Takemichi here, and I'm not sure if it's even possible for you to time travel while in the past. But what would happen if Takemichi and Draken right now had that bond, or that same kind of bond that Takemichi and Mikey had while Takemichi was holding Mikey off the side of the building? Would Takemichi be able to travel back in time using Draken now and possibly try and save Mikey and Draken? Because this death of Draken here to me just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like it's actually going to happen. And in my head now, I keep going to that point back in the series at the start of the Tenjiku arc where Takemichi said that he feels like nothing is impossible and that he could save Baji and Emma. And that there is also what is kind of hinting towards my main theory for the entire series here. I feel like Takemichi's, in some kind of way, he's going to fail here. I don't know how or what kind of means. I know what he felt like after he realized that he couldn't save Emma, and then he kind of had to snap himself out of that and then bring himself back to face Tenjiku and bring all the Toman guys out. So I'm really wondering how Takemichi is going to face the future here and move on from this point. It'd be extremely interesting if Takemichi did shake Draken's hand and just happened to jump back in the past, but I don't think that is going to happen. What I think is going to happen most likely is that entire idea that I brought up in my spoiler video about Takemichi possibly going to meet Kazutora while he's in juvenile, or the fact that Takemichi might even lose and somehow ends up going back to his future timeline where he's alive now, because as we know, Draken passed away, which has changed that future timeline as he was originally alive in it. So I would assume that Takemichi is probably alive now in that future timeline, meaning that he can travel back to the future and live out his life as normal, with, you know, this being the last death of the group, and he doesn't want to get anyone else involved. And after he goes back, he could possibly bump into Kazutora again, and then after a while he could spill the beans to Kazutora on everything that has happened over the years, etc. And then some kind of bond or deal happens between the two, just like Naoto and Takemichi, and just like Mikey and Takemichi, where Kazutora and Takemichi somehow travel back, and Takemichi ends up kind of fixing everything from the very beginning with Kazutora. And I'm going to put a theory video out about this tomorrow, as I've already done the entire audio for it. I just had to make sure that this chapter here was actually going to happen. It wasn't just a future sight that we were seeing of Draken lying on the ground. But stay tuned for that, as I think a lot of people are going to have their minds completely blown, as I think I'm onto something in terms of the entire series and how it's going to end, and how I feel like everything will fix itself in general. But anyway, if you guys are new around here and want to keep up to date with the latest Tokyo Revengers content and just like more anime content in general, then make sure you hit that subscribe button, and also be sure to leave a like on the video, as it really helps out with the algorithm and pushes my stuff to a bunch of new amazing people. Also, be sure to drop a comment down below with what you guys thought about the chapter and kind of where you see it headed in the future, and how you see Takemichi, you know, overcoming this certain outcome. Because in my mind, it's like, how is he going to overcome this without jumping back to the past and kind of trying to fix Draken's death here, as Draken is one of the most important people in Mikey's life. But yeah, anyway, that's what I seem to think. So be sure to drop a comment down below and let me know what you guys all think as well. Also, be sure to check out my Discord if you guys are interested and want to keep up to date with the latest chapter releases and more, as I'll leave a link to that down in the description as well. But for now, it's been your professional degenerate, Diavolo, and I'll see you all in a bit. Bye.